Beyond Babylon, the podcast that journeys through the complexities of the Middle East. Today, we delve deep into the heart of Syria, a nation bearing the scars of a conflict that has spanned over a tumultuous decade. As we unfold the layers of this crisis, we will discuss the sobering reality of political detainees, the undiminished spirit of a belligerent population, and the disastrous earthquake that has further challenged an already struggling society. We'll explore the intricate mosaic of hope, despair, and the relentless pursuit of survival. Join us as we navigate through Syria's present, seeking to understand the resilience that defines its people and the global response that this ongoing tragedy necessitates. This is Beyond Babylon, and here is our story. Among my most cherished possessions is a unique rosary crafted from olive pits intertwined with black and silver beads. This particular rosary was made in a Syrian prison. It was given to me years ago by a dearly missed loved one, a political detainee who spent 5 years imprisoned for providing medical assistance to a region under siege by forces loyal to the Syrian government during the early stages of the Syrian uprising. After her release, her life came to a sudden and tragic end due to the deteriorated health care in the devastated country. This rosary serves as a poignant keepsake of my loved one, embodying hope and resilience, and symbolizing a nation that has been navigating through darkness for over a decade. A nation that, since its inception, seems to have been perpetually searching for a direction. Within the harsh environments of Syrian prisons, detainees have turned to making jewelry, tote bags, and clothing as a means to generate a modest income, earning as little as $3 per month. This paltry sum is vital for affording basic prison commodities, such as renting a mattress for sleeping or buying warm clothes, despite half of their earnings being confiscated by prison authorities. A shadow economy thrives behind bars, characterized by meager wages, labor exploitation akin to slavery, and coercion of inmates incarcerated for common crimes into betraying political detainees. The ordeal faced by the detainees in Syria is deeply distressing, with countless individuals detained for years without a trial and subjected to brutal torture. Syria approaches the grim milestone of 13 years mired in conflict, a period marked by relentless torture and forced disappearances. Although the intensity of the conflict has lessened, largely due to the extensive displacement of citizens and the exodus of refugees fleeing to any accessible sanctuary, an atmosphere of fear and hopelessness pervades the nation. The regime has claimed certain diplomatic triumphs, yet these are hollow victories. The staggering scale of loss renders any talk of resolution meaningless without the implementation of transitional justice and genuine efforts to rehabilitate and uplift the community, measures that are noticeably absent. Since the conflict's onset in March 2011, tens of thousands have been forcibly detained, with many subjected to barbaric treatment at the hands of the Syrian regime, various rebel factions, terrorist groups such as ISIS, and Iranian-backed forces, among other proxies. In this climate, to advocate for one's rights is to risk being marked for retribution. Dissenting from or challenging the egregious acts committed by any of the aforementioned entities can make journalists, academics, laborers, students, and even those extending a helping hand to family or neighbors vulnerable to persecution. To engage in humanitarian acts like distributing aid or medical supplies, is deemed a transgression, leaving men, women, and children to endure inhumane conditions. According to data from Syrian human rights organizations, the number of detainees in Syria has soared to 220,000, including 9,000 children under 18 and 4,500 women. The Syrian Network for Human Rights has documented that 15,301 detainees have died from torture, including 190 children and 94 women, with the Syrian regime accountable for the deaths of 15,051 individuals through torture in its prisons. In a nominal gesture toward reform, the Syrian government enacted a law criminalizing torture in March 2022. Nevertheless, rights groups and activists contend that this law is effectively meaningless so long as the intelligence service, the mukhabarat, operates with impunity and no effective reporting mechanisms exist for the families of victims to declare the deaths, nor is there a pathway to justice. Reports of torture and related deaths persist even post legislation, with families being intimidated by the threat of mukhabarat arrest if they attempt to report their loved ones' deaths. All factions in the Syrian conflict stand accused of torturing not only political detainees but also civilians caught in the crossfire due to territorial divisions. The human rights situation in Syria is dire, with daily abuses such as extrajudicial killings, kidnappings, torture, plundering, and endemic corruption. In a landscape fractured by local and international militias, the rule of law is conspicuously absent. This chaotic milieu has seen the deployment of an array of lethal arms by primarily the Syrian regime, including barrel and cluster bombs. Notably, the regime has employed chemical warfare, with the Ghouta chemical attack in 2013 marking an egregious event claiming over 1,400 lives. Chemical weapons have also been used by the Islamic State group, while incendiary weapons have been utilized by the Syrian regime, Russian forces, and the international coalition. The United Nations, recognizing Syria's situation as one of the most severe refugee crises, with over 14 million people displaced, including more than 7 million internally displaced persons and 5.5 million taking refuge in neighboring countries. A staggering 90% of the Syrian population is living below the poverty line. Since the conflict began, the situation for accessing basic needs like housing, job opportunities, healthcare, education, clean water, and sanitation has drastically deteriorated. The healthcare system, already crippled by a decade of war, has been further weakened by the COVID-19 pandemic, aggravating the population's existing vulnerabilities. Additionally, multiple increases in fuel prices throughout 2022 have further diminished the buying power of already vulnerable families. The onset of the war in Ukraine in early 2022 has led to skyrocketing prices for commodities, negatively impacting Syria's ability to import food and fuel. Coupled with the lowest crop production on record in 2021, the wheat harvest in 2022 continued to suffer from drought and a lack of farming supplies. Syria is now among the top 10 countries worldwide facing severe food insecurity. The World Bank made this assessment of the profound impacts of these challenges on Syrian society and its future. Adding to the Syrian people's litany of suffering, on February 6, 2023, a pair of severe earthquakes struck southeastern Turkey and northern Syria, claiming thousands of lives and wreaking havoc on homes and infrastructure. This calamity deepened the tribulations of Syrians already grappling with displacement and refugeehood, further exacerbating the dire straits of their situation. In the face of relentless adversity, the resilience of the Syrian people endures, their spirit unyielded by the succession of tragedies that have befallen their land. Yet the international community's responsibility remains acute, demanding a renewed commitment to elevating the human cost of this prolonged conflict. The path forward must be paved with concerted efforts for peace, robust humanitarian aid, and a genuine pursuit of justice for the victims. As Syria marks over a decade of distress, the collective moral imperative to restore dignity and hope to its people has never been more pressing. The world must not only witness but actively participate in the creation of a new chapter for Syria, where healing and rebuilding from the ashes of conflict can finally commence. Until next time, this is Nisan, your host, signing off. Thank you for listening to the Beyond Babylon podcast.